I love getting to talk about sex, and I love getting to talk about how to run a great business. To me, there's actually so much similarity there, and there's a lot of overlap.
I think women have a much easier access to almost like expressing and verbalizing how your body feels.
And I don't necessarily think women are even good at that. That to me, I actually really had to learn. Like, oh, my heart rate is higher.
What's your little golden nugget secrets that you can share with us? Welcome, listeners. I'm Seb Wichmann, your host of the DoGood Insider, where we dive deep into raw and meaningful conversations with visionary founders and CEOs who see beyond profit, elevating the lives of employees and vendors and the planet we call home. So I'm personally super thrilled to have Alexandra Fine in our podcast today, an extraordinary sexologist and entrepreneur. As a force in the wellness and sexual health space, Alexandra co-founded DAME, a company revolutionizing how we embrace pleasure as a vital part of self-care. Recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30, she's built a mission-driven brand that champions innovation, inclusivity, and unapologetic joy. Beyond the boardroom, Alexandra is a mother, balancing life's chaos with her entrepreneurial ambitions. She's a passionate ambassador for aligning personal values with professional pursuits, creating meaningful change for people and the planet. Join us as we explore her journey, insights into mental health, managing remote teams, and what it means to be a champion of pleasure. So this conversation promises to inspire, challenge, and empower. Alexandra, welcome. Let's dive straight away into a super juicy topic. So we talk about sexual health and we talk about DAME. We talk about you as an entrepreneur. Now, when we first kind of got in contact with each other, I researched DAME. I looked at your websites with, MIT kind of, relationships, and you're, a sexologist as the foundation of everything we do, the values you have by being wellness driven and empathetic to your employees, vendors, and the environments. But I couldn't help, in my life, being German, maybe a bit prude. I don't know if that's just the German culture, but I grew up with, hey, it's a taboo. It's not something you should embrace. We shouldn't have pleasure in the bedroom, kind of in that way. But yet I couldn't help looking at your products in particular initially and then meeting you, where for the first time felt like, is it okay? Is it okay me using this stuff? Is it okay me having fun with this? So talk us through the kind of challenges you have had to overcome as a founder and DAME as well in the larger context of that all.
Oh, it definitely feels like the challenge I need to continuously overcome in some way. In a lot of ways, like that challenge and that taboo has really come to define a lot of what DAME is, which I find frustrating because I love to really sit with what the value we do bring to the world and the value of sexual pleasure, the importance it can play in our overall health and well-being. Kind of focus on the science of hey, having sexual pleasure is actually good for you. But also a lot of what I do is about kind of confronting the challenges and some of the systematic ways that we suppress pleasure, especially for women. So what I'm most known for is I sued the New York City subway system because they wouldn't let us run ads saying that we were of a sexual nature. Meanwhile, they were running a ton of erectile dysfunction ads. The subway was just full of flaccid cactus, and it was just such a ridiculous thing to claim. And I sued them, and we were, they really weren't able to explain why erectile dysfunction medication would be okay, but vibrators not okay. And yeah, so that's been
an ongoing
ongoing. We can't run ads on Meta. There's just so much with the taboo. On like a personal level, but on an institutional level is really what keeps me back more. Because I think actually on an individual level, everybody's a little curious. Most people are curious. Most people are like, oh, I don't mind. I just, I don't know if it's just in the workspace. It's like different.
Talk us through kind of what are to me, pleasure is such and not just sexual pleasure, but since we talk about this, of course, today, the outlet that an entrepreneur has, having been being under pressure all day, every day, not being able to sleep and all that. Talk us through the value for entrepreneurs, in particular around sexual pleasure. What does the science say? I know that you have a lot of kind of grounding in, the kind of almost you see your products as medical devices, so to speak, to some regards. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some compelling science around it positively impacting our stress. I hate the way I phrased that. Having decreasing stress, increasing our sleep or improving our sleep. I do think too that prioritizing our pleasure, just a powerful indicator of our ability to like connect with our bodies. I know for me, I think when I've had a lot of stress at work, sometimes actually masturbation can be incredibly challenging. Like to not really be able to stay in my body for that period of time is an indicator, I think, of where I'm at mentally. And so I think it has like a lot of positive impacts. And there's like a lot of play there too. I know people who like to build up their energy in the morning without releasing it and kind of believe that sets them up for like an energetic day.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's fascinating. Especially what you said, kind of the ability to actually relax, right? Which is so important, right? So Alex, talk us through a little bit. When I looked at Dame, the products just communicate such high value. What has been the journey for you to arriving at products that are, to me, just so vastly different, at least the way it communicates to the outside world? What has been your journey? How did you start to do research? Talk us through this kind of trajectory a little bit with Dame.
Yeah, sure. So when I launched Dame, we really focused on one product, which is Eva. Eva is my kind of what put us on the map. It's a hands-free clitoral vibrator that somebody with a vulva can wear without blocking their vaginal canal, so you can have penetrative sex and get some extra clitoral stimulation. And I think that so much of that product, the innovation for it, kind of like just thinking a little bit outside of the box, putting women's needs first in the design, and then also designing with people, all of that kind of ended up laying an incredible foundation for the brand. But Eva is really unique, and we launched it on Indiegogo, and we raised $575,000 in 45 days. And that was kind of how we got started, which is really amazing. And I do think that, we were just honest and frank about what we were trying to do. We did we worked with real people to make these products great. And we had a commitment to...
So no robots yet.
No robots yet, yeah.
Product MVP.
We've definitely used models in, on a case, like those are helpful. It's not like we're only relying on humans, but some of those models are not helpful. And so I don't know. I think that those are the things that really set us apart. And how we laid the foundation of what we were going to say and talk about. We knew that we didn't want to, I think, honestly, we knew a lot about what we didn't want to be. We didn't want to be a brand that was, don't tell anybody. We didn't want to be a brand that, was nighttime sexy. We were really like, women are using these products in their pajamas in the morning time rolling out of bed. They're not putting on silk gowns and stiletto heels and like eating chocolate and lighting a fire in their fireplace. Like that's not really what's happening. What's happening is, you're wearing your t-shirt from yesterday. It's so really kind of, I think, just coming at it from an honest perspective. And we were one of the first, we were the first women to really come at it. So that just opened up a huge, just a new perspective. Like I don't even, some of the things that we did, I didn't even realize that they were innovative or different.
So, the whole reason why I really invited you is it is so challenging for entrepreneurs to find their voice, number one, right? To find product market fit, but then also to be the ambassador for the brand and fully stand behind. For some people, it comes more natural than for others. And on top of this challenge for yourself, you also had to battle the whole notion of releasing a product, which kind of has this taboo attached to it, right? So that's really, I'm really in utter awe. And, there's such grace that you have shown over the years. I think you have been in the game for 10 years, since 2014. Is that right? I mean, you had a long stint in kind of figuring that piece out, right?
Yeah, a little bit. And sometimes I don't know if I have figured it out. Like it's very, I just wake up every day and you just try and be yourself and present yourself as like authentically as you can. And it is interesting because I do have like investors that follow me on Instagram and but I love getting to talk about sex and I love getting to talk about how to run a great business. And I think that those are like two, to me, there's actually so much similarity there and there's a lot of overlap. A lot of things I learned in wanting to be a great couples therapist have helped me so much in management. There's been a lot of things I think about learning just around boundaries and finding your pleasure and listening to your body that I also find has been really helpful in like leadership and visionary work. But yeah, I don't know. So I think for me, I was just so passionate about the topic and that was kind of part of really what brought me here. And it's amazing.
Even like you're a little shy about talking about it, right? So I think all of it is just really, really fitting.
It's interesting because like, my sexuality and what I want to bring to the table, like at the end of the day, like I'm not going to take like a thirsty photo and probably post it on LinkedIn.
Of course.
But like I might post one a little bit on Instagram and, I know that like it shows up there. But I do feel still like things of it are, for me, private. But then I don't know. I also talk about like, I think there's like an article out there where like, I'm just like sometimes myself, I don't even think about it. Like there's an article about me on the internet somewhere where I just talked about being on Field. Do you know what Field is?
I have no idea what that means.
Okay, it's a dating website for people who are more into like non-monogamy. So there's a lot of coupled up people who go on this site for like ethical non-monogamy, which I always hate that we say ethical non-monogamy because wouldn't it just be like unethical? Shouldn't we just define the unethical stuff? Like it's not. Anyway, and it was just interesting having that a part, like showing up as my whole self. I do think that there are boundaries on that. And I don't think you really want to show up professionally as your full whole self. But I definitely think I'm bringing a lot more of it to the table. And because I think I'm in a position of power, getting to do that, I think is really important and cool.
Yeah. And I think that is, again, so important and a prime example for what I believe we should do more of, whether or not, again, sexual space or not, or sexuality or not, but to show up authentic as an entrepreneur and not needing to fake it or not needing to, kind of kind of communicate that you're bigger than you actually are in terms of kind of your brand, whatever it is. I think that's so valuable. Let's transition the conversation into entrepreneurship a little bit. So,
okay, yeah.
Right. Talk us through, we talked a little bit about the challenges around remote teams, for example, when we initially talked, right? And like, I would be super keen and interested to, and I'm going a little off topic almost here, but talk us through the values that Dame encompasses, that of value, that of wellness, that of empathy. How did you hire for this? And what's kind of this notion of authenticity inside Dame as a team? How do you go about upholding those values and so on?
I think that that's a really great question. I really think that it's important that all of your brand's external values are reflected internally. I don't think all the internal values like responsibility are necessarily external ones, but and that was something that was really important to me when we were building the brand. And I think, one of the things we are is champions of pleasure. Like, obviously, that's going to be an external brand. Part of it is like, we think sex is good. Actually, let me rephrase that. We think healthy sex is good. And that sex is, that pleasure is important. So we were like, how do we reflect that internally? And now we talk a lot about, making Dame a pleasurable place to work. Like, it's a pleasure doing business with you. What does that really mean? And I do think I think there's something really beautiful about sex that you learn, which is like, it's not really about efficiency, right? It is about like enjoying time and enjoying the present moment. And, holding space for like non-structured, I think when you're a remote team and you get on a call all the time, it's work, and you really need to almost like more intentionally hold space for play. In order to really create, I don't think I've ever been so aware of like, or I wasn't as aware. I feel like so much play just happened naturally when we were all in the workspace together. And now it happens usually during a scheduled time, right? Like, you're there for a meeting, like the whole team is together and it's like, oh,
when you guys have fun.
Yeah. And I'm like, we have to have fun now too, a little bit. Because that's when we all get together. When
creativity comes to the fore and all that, right?
Yeah. And honestly, just I think a creation of like, psychological safety, like when...
Huge thing for women. I mean, wow. Yeah. Speak about psychological safety.
Yeah. It's not just even for women. I think there's been just so much work around like when people are trusted in a team, it is so much easier and also some of this research I think is echoed in couples therapy. But when you feel on a team that like people believe in you and respect you and like you're safe enough to fail, like that's when like teams can really be creative and work well together. When there's like this or already like created belief that we all can do it. And not everybody's secretly worried that nobody believes in them, that their work is bad or whatever.
Right.
And I think that in order to create that, especially because so much of a manager's job is to give feedback. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I think it's to give constructive feedback, which tends to be a little bit more negative, or it's how you could be better, you could be better.
Not as enjoyable.
Not as enjoyable.
Right.
Not as enjoyable to give too, which is...
It's a gift, yeah. I had to learn this. Oh my gosh. For some people, it seems to be so difficult, including myself, to receive constructive feedback. I've gotten better at it, hopefully, but...
I think I've gotten a lot better at it. I think I'm medium at it. But I do want it. And I think it's always good to just like get better at it and you sit with it. And yeah, I'm super critical. So if I probably already said it to myself.
Yeah. But that also is the nature of entrepreneurs, where, I mean, I'm talking to, day in, day out, so many entrepreneurs. And this is this red thread that I constantly see, where we set the standards for ourselves so high that we strive for, that's almost like this pursuit towards greatness that we're after, right? In everything we do. And sometimes teams struggle with this a little bit more than other times. Depends on the person you are or the hire you bring in. Talk us through a little bit, like Dane being all about, the nature of the product already oozes, let's have fun, let's enjoy the experience together, right? It doesn't matter in what context, right? But how do you have difficult conversation? How do you, if really shit goes down at Dame, how do you say, hey, no pleasure right now, guys, I need to talk to you? How do you have those difficult conversations where you really have this lump sitting on your chest, this pain point, maybe financially, or maybe where you really are in the crux of things, you have to address something and it's not going to be fun. How do you do that?
I think it really depends on what we're addressing, right? Like sometimes you're addressing personal behavior. Sometimes I'm firing people. Sometimes we're just addressing like a reality that nobody likes. Like this is going to take a lot longer, or we need more money than we thought we were going to need. So I think it really depends. I think the personal feedback is always kind of the hardest to give, where it feels, on how somebody behaves. I do think that always focusing on objective behaviors as much as possible over judgments. And when I say judgments, I think people don't even realize what a judgment is often. Like, I'm trying to think of like a good thing okay, you know what? Like, I don't see you, like, you're not proactive. That's actually kind of me. That's a judgment. I'm saying you're not proactive enough or proactive. What's much more helpful is like, hey, we had this meeting. You sent me a draft for this presentation like two days before. Really should have been done 2 weeks ago. That would be more proactive in my mind. So I think, a lot of my beliefs on this just kind of come from like nonviolent communication and like marriage counseling and giving like clear, direct feedback. And I think that people, acknowledging also like what is your experience versus what is reality. You can really only speak from your experience. So like you might be a great employee somewhere else, but my experience of you is that it's not working with me. And maybe that's because of me in your world. Maybe that's true. Either way, we need to have a good like working relationship, which is like an entity outside of either me or you. And like working on the relationship, which again, marriage counseling, like family therapy, like versus on the individuals, I think is really helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah, such a fine balance, like, I would argue that most entrepreneurs in the scale-up or startup world, we are often after contrarians again. And that is one reason why I wanted to talk to you, because it is not an easy stand for you, let's be honest, right? And yet you have thrived and survived and thrived again over quite some time, right? But so it really inspired me, Alex, to see how you go about this. So thank you so much for that. First of all, how do you right now, like also my organization, right? We are looking to work hard, but also keeping the fun up and having this authentic conversation where you say, hey, I don't know it all, including myself, can you help, asking for help, being vulnerable and all that, right? Which is so important to a healthy relationship, whether or not it's intimate or whether or not it's in a company, it doesn't really matter, right? How do you keep that balance right now between being an entrepreneur, having investors, kind of having the pressure of having to perform as a brand, understanding the value of that authenticity needs to stand in the foreground, combining this with we want to have fun because that's a product, but also having those difficult conversation. How do you keep the balance with this all? Like, what's your little golden nugget secrets that you can share with us?
I guess for me, like, if it's really not feeling good, we probably need to make changes. And in my most intense experiences, that means firing people, right? Like cash flow isn't working right now, whatever it is, like Facebook turned off our ads. I don't know. But like, it's not feeling good. And I usually, if it keeps on not feeling good for me and starts impacting my emotional, like my inner world, then like, I think it's really time to make a change. So I don't know. I think that that's also helps you keep it positive. And it's not just about it being positive. I think a lot of this comes down to be like honest. There's a level of there's authentic. And then there's also, I do think, not too vulnerable. You know, it's not helpful if I'm feeling incredibly stressed out for everybody to know it. It's just, but when I'm really, really feeling it, it is helpful for the right information that I can pull from that to be directed to the right person. So like if I'm really stressed that this product isn't going to happen on time or something, you know, like I can have a conversation one-on-one with the product lead. But, you know, and I think it depends on your team too. Like if you have, when I first started the business, I wanted to be transparent about everything. Like I literally
I can see it.
Cash balance like on like and showed it to everybody all the time. So I do think I've also learned some lessons in like that's not helpful for people. For that can just give some people a ton of anxiety. And part of your job as a leader is to be the buffer of anxiety for them. So much of being a leader is to help my employees have more stability in their lives, and then to like, I don't know, as like calmly and humanely as I can express the right urgency when urgency is needed.
Right.
Make the change that I need to make. And then I think severances, if we're again talking about like those are really, that's really important. Like those are the things that allow me to do what I do.
I have one more last very interesting question.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's just me or men in general, but we have a very hard time to really feel our emotions in our body. I think women have a much easier access to like, almost like expressing and verbalizing how your body feels, right? Now, you just talked about kind of...
I actually, to be honest, I don't even think that women are... How your body feels is really different than what you're feeling.
Yes.
And like, and those are actually really important differences. But sorry, and I don't necessarily think women are even good at that. That to me, I actually really had to learn. Like, oh, my heart rate is higher. Oh my God, like those things.
Because emotions, and thank you for that. I think that's really interesting. You know, like to me, emotions, and I love the topic of, you know, emotional psychology or intelligence and all that good stuff, right? This is where I come to shine as a learning and development expert and having done what I've done. But emotions can be so misleading, right? Now we have to we want to follow our gut, but then emotions, they're so dependent on past trauma and all that, right? So challenging to kind of sometimes, you know, let the emotions be the emotions, to breathe and to say, okay, let's just be almost objective again about this, because in the end, having a calm mind as a leader helps tremendously to make strong decisions, right? May I just say, but how do you as a woman or as a man or as a leader, how do you know when something is off?
Okay.
Like, how do you make that decision where this is just off? It's not just me. There's something just wrong here. I need to change something. How do you know?
Okay. One, I think I have a lot of masculine energy too. So like I identify not just as a woman, but as a woman, you know, I think honestly, I still think everybody first experiences the world emotionally often. And then we're kind of going back to like the judgments and the observations. So, okay, I feel really stressed at work. You know, why? Can I start having objective reasons why it feels bad? And can I explain it? And then can we have a conversation? I've had the trauma, like thinking of like work traumas. We've had inventory traumas. I've been out of stock. I've been overstocked. I've been all the stocks. So I definitely have, like making sure that I have the right systems, and then we can have the right conversations with data about, where we are to kind of decipher that. But I still also think like that stressor, that thing that I might be a little bit more like, oh, are we sure we need all of that or whatever it is? Like I honor it, and then you kind of go from there and start to put data and facts to it more. And
so are you saying that you want to always have a proof point backing your emotions or the way your body feels with data? Is this what I'm hearing from you?
For decision making?
For decision making?
For the purposes of deciding what to do next.
But what about a hire, for example, right? A hire is sometimes it's so... it's like...
what I would hate is if people are like, oh, I have no emotion when I'm hiring someone. Like, no, you can't possibly truly get to know somebody in the amount of time you're going to hire them. I think something I have struggled with the boys is when they say that, they really love stoicism, which I do too. And, they think they're not emotional, but they still are, they just don't even see their emotions. Like they say they're not emotional. They don't recognize that anger and frustration is an emotion that they are often experiencing. And I don't know, it's like we all have biases and we all have ways. And I think that also like when you're hiring somebody, like I do my best to make sure I have assessments and questions that are really about the work I'm going to need this person to do to try and decipher if they're capable of doing that work. But I'm also looking for a little like feel, because you could be like the best copywriter ever. But if you and I can't jive in talking about it, it doesn't matter. Like I do need you to have an emotional connection to me because we're going to work together. And I'm a little like, you have to be okay with me and a little bit of chaos. If you need a lot of structure, I'm probably not your gal. And I think like,
that's very clear.
Like it only supports me. It only helps me find like the more I understand who I am and my flaws, like the better I can, express that beforehand, which both makes it easier to handle or experience and also easier to self-select. Does that answer your question? Which I guess
I think, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so true, like hiring for culture first, I hear that expression a lot. And to me, I always say that, I want to have, I don't drink alcohol, but, like if I would put it in a man's terms, I want to be able to have a glass of beer with you or to have I'm more into coconut water and juices. So I'm let's have
able to shoot. Yeah. You want to be able to
I want to be able to say, I'm excited to hang out with this person.
Would you create a culture where you wouldn't hire somebody that drinks?
For us as a culture, no, that's not a value for us necessarily. Yeah. But the person has to, it's a good question. The person has to have a healthy mind and kind of, DoGood is all about giving back. It's all about contribution. It's all about you seeing yourself as an elite athlete and us performing as a team, right? So if somebody doesn't have this performance stance, wanting to improve, wanting to have a growth mindset, wanting to become tomorrow a better person than you are today, DoGood is not a great spot for you because I'm going to challenge you like crazy, and you will struggle, right? So but drinking, if it's once a month, it's fine. But if you go out every night or every weekend and you just bang yourself, you're probably not the best fit for sure. Yeah, right? It's more mindset.
It's indicative. Well, it's indicative of like these other things. Because I think that's what's really important is like kind of just basing it on values and not on like I think sometimes to me cultural fit. I've also seen it kind of become problematic where, all of a sudden you're only hiring like bros who
That's a personal value, right?
Or
right.
yeah,
right.
or so similar to you, or So the diversity is really important. So I think that that's like a great way of thinking about it. It's just really having those clear values. And yeah, sometimes behaviors are indicative of those values, but not, it's not really to one.
Yeah, and I love that. That's awesome. Alex, it has been an absolute pleasure. I have one last question in a second, but before we get there, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for somebody that has been there, has been in the trenches, right? You knew from the beginning that this is not going to be like, selling lollipops, in a candy store, right? And I really acknowledge you for getting out there, being vulnerable, being authentic, and kind of, especially to women, this is my last question in a second, kind of show that it fits in a world that is nowadays so, I wouldn't say like, I'm not sure if fake is the right word, but so at times, not authentic, right? And where people are not themselves, and where we put on a bit of a mask to appear bigger than we are and whatever. So well done on everything you have done. Really, appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
So talk us as a last point, you empowering a woman. What is like one point maybe that you hope for that women would do more of, or something that you wish for we should change, or what is this one thing that you would love to leave our women audience with, where you would say, man, well done, girl?
I feel like I have some real hot takes right now that are not. I mean, I'm gonna just go for it, Don't give your children his last name. Why are we just defaulting to that still? Are you kidding me? I'm done. That's, I feel like by all means, by the way, you guys should do what makes you feel comfortable. I don't like to throw down shoulds too aggressively, but I don't know. I think that like a lot of empowering is, I think more in my category, it would be like, not faking orgasms, asking for more sexual pleasure, and like looking for that spark in life. But I do also think that feels really related to just giving kids.
Amazing. Amazing.
What I'm not saying is never just bad.
Yeah. Amazing. Alex, thank you so much for all your authenticity and honesty. It has been a breath of fresh air.
I think it got me in trouble this time. I'm pretty worried about that. That comment.
We can cut things out, but no,
you gotta leave it in there. I'll take it, guys. That's my hot take. I'm taking it. I still love you if you disagree with me.
Yeah, well done, Alex. All the best. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.